you can just cut it.
Hello everyone, today I'm going to do the interview for media writing and this is my friend Ali. So please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Alitea Sheila Gatdula Ali. I'm an international student from the Philippines and I'm doing Bachelor of Psychology honors and I am also in my second semester of my first year.
Oh, okay. So I want to ask you some question about your personal experience when you study in Malaysia. So the first question is, can you describe what your first few weeks in Malaysia were like, and what were the unexpected emotional and cultural realities you faced during the few weeks?
Okay, so obviously for me as an international student in Malaysia, at first it was fun. Like in terms of when I arrived here in Malaysia, it was all fun because I had the opportunity to explore places. However, given my family circumstances and the hecticness of the visa processing, like let's say processing my visa, medical examination, those things really took a toll on me prior to the event, like the event for first year students. And so instead of enjoying my first few weeks before the semester begins, it made me kind of stressed out that I'm starting school. That is in terms of the emotional realities that I've encountered. However, for cultural, so basing it on my experience as well, I grew up in Qatar, and so I do know the cultural barriers there is. Because when I was in Qatar, I couldn't understand Arabic, and so same here in Malaysia where I couldn't understand Mandarin or Chinese when Malaysian Chinese people are speaking. And so for me, it's not really big of a deal, but on certain circumstances it would be hard to talk with people, especially when it comes to academics.
It's also like a language barrier in Malaysia. So many people they can also speak Chinese, but in this environment you are really stressed. You want to learn Chinese, how to communicate with local people. Okay, so second question is, can you recall a specific moment when the weight of study abroad made you question your decision to stay? What triggered that feeling?
Okay, so a specific moment would be maybe last sem. So although last sem was a short semester, it was a bit of a rigorous and hectic months for me because the reality set in wherein my family and I weren't in a good place when it comes to financial constraints, and we had a lot of financial constraints. And so instead of just worrying about my studies, I also had to worry about my tuition fee. I also had to worry about eating. So instead of worrying about just solely focusing on studies, I had to focus on surviving as well. Surviving in terms of, it's not like I went here to live, I went here to survive. So per day-to-day basis, there were times I would skip a meal for 2-3 days just to get by. And so that took a strain on me because I lost weight rapidly in those first few months, and we had financial constraints, like my account was also blocked when I was late to pay tuition fees, and I was so stressed out in my studies as well because the degree I'm pursuing is quite heavy and rigorous in terms of coursework. Yeah.
So the third question is, how did you personally deal with feeling like homesickness, loneliness, or culture shock?
So when it comes to homesickness, I would deal with it in a way that I would video call with my friends back home and my siblings back home. However, when it comes to loneliness, it depends on the day. If depression strikes me, I would deal loneliness with just being alone. I would prefer to deal with loneliness alone, where I could think and process my emotions. And so when I am alone, that's where all the emotions come out. And most times I would cry. Because then, you know, the feeling of like everything is just against you. That's what I'm feeling when I'm alone. And so when it makes me feel helpless, it makes me feel lonely. But then there are certain times that when I feel alone, I seek reassurance, I seek a presence from others. But most usually not, I try to deal with it on my own because I have to regulate my emotions, of course. And then in terms of culture shock,
do you think there's culture shock in Malaysia? Really?
Culture shock, I would say not really a shock because, as I said, I grew up not in my home country, which is the Philippines. I grew up in Qatar, and so culture shock isn't really a bit of a big deal for me. But when it really comes to the academics, I find it very hard. Not really very hard, but like on some occasions there will be challenges where I find that my group mates and mine's work ethics are very different. And so that became like not really a culture shock, but an academic shock.
Academic shock.
Yeah. So yeah, that's basically it.
Okay, so the fourth question was there a turning point or an encounter, event, or support system that significantly helped you to transition from your surviving or thriving?
Okay, so I would say the support system I've had since coming here is entirely different to the support system I've had now. So the support system I've had when I came here, I would say we drifted. There are people who are not part of my life anymore. And so when the transition of my school began, I found people who I could rely on and have a support system. So although those people who were initially in the first phase of my academic semester, my year, or half of my year here, are not in my life anymore, I found it a bit hard to transition because I'm not used to the people I'm relying to, or like a support system I'm relying to. But then I also had to put myself out there. And I had to remind myself all over again that change is fine and that it's okay for me to have another support system that is also healthy, or let's say healthier compared to the previous support system I've had. And that would be my church community. So when I went here, my old friend who was part of that old support system introduced me to that church community. And now, since I'm in that church community, I felt like I was able to adjust and have a deeper understanding of the support system I've had. And so even though I don't have that old friend from my life anymore currently, because she's a part of my old support system, it gave me a sense of relief that I was able to adjust myself, and I am still adjusting. And I do believe that although there has been a difference in the support system I've had, it still is on me that I make sure to put myself out there, and I have to just be there mostly for myself, although that I have a support system. Because a support system can just go a long way, but at the end of the day, you only have yourself to rely on. So I try to really regulate my emotions about that.
So the last question is, based from your personal journey, what would you tell a newly arrived international student who's silently struggling with this adjustment?
So I would say My only advice is that change is inevitable. And although you, at a certain point in your life when you're adjusting, you wouldn't like where you are. There would be times where you would either hate yourself, you would either hate the people around you, or you would either hate the environment that you're in. But what I can say is just keep moving. Keep moving, rise above. Even if you're tired, just do it. And eventually you will see that you've grown into this better person, and you're able to experience a lot of things that you never even thought you could experience at the very present. Because for me personally, I didn't want to put myself out there, given that I lost old friends because of this adjustment in school. I lost a lot of, let's say, opportunities when I didn't choose to go study in my initial chosen university. And so that was like my regret. But then I had to realize that although those opportunities didn't happen, I also had the opportunity to make this happen. And so I had to enjoy the now rather than the what ifs. So that's just my advice, that go for it, strive for change, and you don't have to do it rapidly. You can do it at your own pace, and then you can adjust well when you know that you're in an environment that you're safe.
Okay, that's all for the interview. Thank you.
Thank you.